Only way to start your day.
Biggest conversation. We continue with the conversations in studio, and we're just off a heated political discourse on the future of ODM. And a lot has been discussed, many saying that ODM has lost its position on being Tetezi wa Wananchi, and as well as the fact that there is political jostling that is ongoing at the moment, and there is a need for ODM to recalibrate itself and find itself back to Wananchi. Because even if you just look at Kenyans who are listening in and those who are watching, they're saying ODM has lost it. It would take a lot for them to come back and resonate with Wananchi.
Very, very clear, and it really has to be at the behest of ODM to find out how to regain that space as the people's movement, because you cannot say you're a movement, but really when you look at even how now the organizing of the rallies is being done, quite chaotic, and there's not so much of a very sparring, a message that people can leave the rallies with. And that's something that Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga used to do. There is at least a word or two that he would always ensure that reverberates even post those rallies. And I think right now, ODM is struggling to maintain that kind of
to find its footing. Anyway, we wait to see how things will progress in the coming days. But right now, we want to take a different turn in conversation. We want to talk about the environment. And in studio is Professor Karanja Njoroge, who's a board member, Friends of Karura Forest Association. We're talking about the true cost and impact of the animal orphanage move or relocation, and what that would mean to Nairobi, to environmentalists, and to Kenyans as well when that does happen. Professor, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yes, happy to see you.
I'm grateful to be here. Haven't been to Spice FM until now. So,
I see there's always a start,
There's always a beginning.
There's always a beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, happy to see you. So, Professor, we want to, when you get to the, to that seat, it's called the hot seat, we usually start by giving you a job.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, and the job here is you have to interpret a proverb. And today, we go to different we go to different African countries every week, right? So today we are in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Simbali hapa tu. Hapa juu Simbali. Yeah, and you hear about the Democratic Republic of Congo, and one thing that strikes your head is the resources that they do have. A rich country, your second largest in the continent. Unfortunately, that has to the unfortunate part is, but there is war that stops them from taking advantage of resources that they do have, So even today, as we talk about conversation around environment, touches highly on Democratic Republic of Congo, rainforest that they do have, agriculture should have been huge, should not be going through the problems they do have. But let's go to the proverb. So the proverb says, the lizard had the tree in mind before challenging the dog to a fight. The lizard had the tree in mind before challenging the dog to a fight. I know you're a friend of Karura. Karura is synonymous with trees. How would you interpret it?
I think always have a safety corner when you're confronting an enemy.
Yes.
In other words, for the lizard, the tree saves him or her from the dog. And so even in our human relationships, if you confront an enemy, do not do so without checking whether you have a tree to climb on. So that you reduce the risks of confrontation. That's my interpretation of
Well done. Always having a fallback plan, because
have a fallback.
Always have a fallback plan.
Yes.
Now, Professor, we find ourselves in a very, as someone who loves the environment, in a sad place today. Because you look at what is being done to would-be spaces that Kenyans have enjoyed for a very long time, and it's a sad state of affairs. You talk about Karura and its space being hived. You go to the orphanage, and orphanage, many don't know about it, but it is part and parcel of the Nairobi National Park.
Yes.
So here now there are conversations on relocation of the same. So there are two versions here. Yeah, and I want you to correct and tell us which one is the fact. So there is the version that the orphanage is being, it's around 80-something acres, if I'm not wrong, that is being hived off to erect parking for what is being built at Bomas. That is version number one. There is the second version where KWS, through its statement, has said that the orphanage is small, cannot hold the number of tourists or a number of individuals who are visiting the facility, that it is important for them to improve on the facility, have a hospital there that would help even with dealing with animals from the larger Nairobi National Park. Of the two versions, which one is the truth?
None.
Which one is the true version?
The truth of the matter
Yeah.
is that we are being led by people who are diplomatic. They think as they go rather than think and do.
Yes.
The first thing that I would challenge the relocation and the whatever it is,
Yes.
the parking lot. The first challenge I would give them is that the law in Kenya is very clear. You cannot alienate conservation land without public participation. Where is the public participation? When did they call for it? They may have talked to a few people. I understand they did have a conversation with some members of FONA, friends of Nairobi National Park.
Yes.
But that is not public participation. They should invite us, external. But even then, I am serving on the board of the Nairobi National Park Human Wildlife Conflict Committee. I was not involved. We were not. I mean, if any one of my fellows in that committee would have been consulted, they would have told us, oh, this is happening, da, 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 da. So we give our view. But the essence of the law is that the public must be informed appropriately of your intentions, and they must be allowed to participate in that decision making. How do you participate? You call public participation meetings. And if 50+1 of the people who come object, then you must go either back to your drawing board and redraft what it is you want in accordance with what the wishes of the public is, or you discard the project. Now, for the director of Kenya Wildlife Service, why do you forget to follow the law? That's the question I would like to ask him. I wish you had invited him here so that we understand why are they afraid of us, the owners of conservation lands in Kenya.
Yeah. Prof,
Why is the government afraid of consulting us? It's like you, if you're married and you have children, you decide tomorrow, I'm moving my family from there to another place, but you don't tell anyone. What would your children think? You didn't tell me. I mean, did this just come? Is it an emergency? What is the problem? The same case your wife will ask you. So as a nation, we need to be asking these questions very strongly. Why is it that we are not told what the government intends to do?
So I'm just wondering, Prof, because that's really alarming, and especially in a country where we have seen many of these kind of decisions being taken with a clear disregard to the rule of law, public participation. So are you saying that you have not been involved? You have not been engaged? There is purely no communication? Are you petitioning the process? Are you in court? Is there any action that you are taking as friends of...
As friends of Karura Forest, we are in court because of Karura on other issues.
Yes.
One would have thought that there is an organization or another organization that will do the same for others,
park,
because it costs also to go to court.
Yeah.
But why should this nation depend on court systems for simple actions of what I call misdemeanor? Why would they decide on our behalf? It costs to do what they are doing.
Yeah. Billions of shillings.
Billions of
public
shillings.
funds, yes.
And it costs to build Bomas. Is it Bomas of Kenya?
Yes.
Whatever they have spent, they're spending huge amounts of money. But why is it so difficult to say this will require parking? But surely, when they drew and planned this development, where did they think people will park?
The vehicles, yeah.
Why come at the 11th hour when you're completing a project to say, oh, we need a parking and we can only go to the national park? I think it annoys us, it angers us, it makes us look like we don't belong to this government. Are we together? The government should be able to have a heartbeat feeling of what the communities and the people want. We don't want to destroy Nairobi National Park. And I'll tell you 3 reasons. One reason is that Nairobi National Park has very high visitation.
Yes.
Not because it's a very good park, but because it's in the city of Nairobi.
Yes.
So even a stranger coming from anywhere said, where do I see? They say, oh, just go to the national park. They can dash there for 3 hours, come back to their meetings.
And it's only
and
one
go home.
globally, a national park within a city.
Within
right?
a city.
city, yeah.
So it's a big thing. That's one. Number 2, Nairobi National Park is a place where most of the animals can take the same route within a week. If it's lions, and that's why you see a lot of lions getting out of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going to
Because they're
residential.
trying to figure out where else can I hunt, man. This place is whatever. And now you come and start
Obsolete.
removing land from these animals. It reminds me of a guy called Atuoli. Do you know him? Kotu, whatever. He said recently, not more than a month ago, that Nairobi National Park is in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get rid of it and...
Get rid of it, build houses for people. Did he know something we didn't know?
He was preparing us.
Was he preparing us? I'm just saying, look, we have a country to save for generations to come. I want my grandchild to know that we conserved Karura. We maintained one of the world's greatest thing, the Nairobi National Park, right in the city.
Yeah.
But we want to do it even better. What we would like to do is actually to buy off some farms so that these animals have greater space.
It's expanded.
It is not contracting it, it's expanding it that we should be working on.
You know, Prof, I'm looking at the statement here that was sent by KWS, and I'm just going to read a quote, and they say, the Kenya Wildlife Services notes with concern statements circulating on social media from a group calling itself Friends of Nairobi National Park, FONAP, alleging that the upland forest in Nairobi National Park is being destroyed. Now, on jobs, KWS says the project will create over 500 direct employment opportunities for young Kenyans, with additional openings for service providers, making this as much an economic initiative as a conservation one.
Who signs that letter? Because I'd like to know the head that thought those things.
You know, because if you just...
Just a minute.
Yeah.
You know, throwing a fruit, 500 jobs.
Yes. Is it worth it?
No. Even it was creating 1,000 jobs,
Yes.
my brother. It is not worth destroying even 1 hectare of Nairobi National Park. And I can say that openly because these people are so devoid of thought and connections. Connect with Kenyans.
Yeah.
As Kenyans know what they are looking for and how they want the future of their country to look like. They would rather have concrete grey environment than an ecosystem for wildlife. They would rather in Karura have high-rise apartments
Affordable housing.
instead of a closed canopy African montane forests. These are people who are cake. We must root them out of anywhere where decisions are being made. I mean, go to many many countries, go to the Central Park in New York.
Yeah.
Can you think of anybody, whether a local politician or a national politician, Trump, saying, "Oh, we want to build in the
Central Park.
in New York Central Park"? I think he would be lunatic.
Yeah.
So here we are.
It's unfortunate.
We have some people who require Madare attention.
And the question that begs is, what actions do we take, Professor? Because that really is where the really where
The
the
rubber
buck stops.
hits
The rubber hits the road.
And unfortunately, people like this thrive where the population are strangled. So a person like me will say it, a person like you will say it, but the majority of the people will say, it's none of my business. I'm too busy looking for ugali for tonight.
Yes. Putting food on the table.
And it's true. I mean, if you're in that situation, so they will prefer people get poorer because they have no voice. Poor people have no voice. And if you look at Kenyan population today, we have more poor people than we had 20 years ago.
Prof, I happened to be in Brazil for COP 30,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And it was held in a city outside the big cities in Brazil. It's called Belém. And Belém is a city that borders the Amazon forest. And when I had an opportunity of going to the Amazon, you look at how they're protecting that space with their lives, the indigenous communities.
The indigenous communities. Yes.
Protecting that space and saying, because they came to the venue and said, we are not having this discussion without you guys hearing our voice on why it is important for us to protect the environment. Why? I remember when we got there, mosquitoes in Amazon, those ones are Pro Max, right? But there is a solution the indigenous communities do have where you just apply on yourself and you're good to go.
Yes.
And we look at our situation in Kenya. Now let's go to Mau. For a very long time, it has been a fight for the indigenous community to leave the protectors of the forest who are being ejected from that forest. Yet they're the ones who protected it, the reason why we're enjoying it today. You come to Nairobi National Park, and for a very long time, the people of Nairobi want to enjoy this facility. Many look at Nairobi National Park as just another piece of land, those who don't care about it. But you look at what that does in cleaning the air in Nairobi. You look at what that means for the people in terms of recreational facilities, walking in the park, enjoying what there is. And many never think of it in that way, on the importance of us having it. That is why Karura would be cut down, because someone wants apartments there. Walk us through the importance of us having green spaces, of us protecting our environment, and what that means for the future. Professor, you've been here longer than us. How was Nairobi National Park when you were young, the Karura Forest? And what has that done to maintain the sanctity of what Nairobi is today?
Let me start with Karura. Karura was a very huge forest. And around 1919.
Yes.
Around 1919, majority of the forests fell to white highland farmers.
Yes.
So from where Karura sits today, as you move west, it's Runda, you go to communities.
Yes.
Some community land, then you go to big farms around Kabuku, Muguga,
Yes.
Mudega, and so on.
Tigoni,
And in fact, even the words tell you.
Yeah.
Mudega is a tree called Mudaiga. Mudega is a tree called the African green heart. And the Kikuyus called it Mudega because it produced medicine, Mudaiga. Now, that whole area was covered by that a forest that included that tree. And people would come from as far as Muranga to medicine men to come and collect medicine in Karura. But when 1919, when the Kenya was in the verge of becoming a colony, many farmers were called to come to Kenya because they realized that the railway line they had just built wasn't making much money because the cotton coming from Sudan was few and, it wasn't. So they wanted now to farm, and they looked at issues of dairy, wheat, pyrethrum, and things like those. So they brought in. So all that turned into farms for the white farmers. In fact, where the university, Kabete campus was part of Karura.
Yes.
So going up north. So when that was done, it means that land converted completely to agriculture. And even when the Mzungu left, it was sold to Africans.
Yes.
And even when the Africans sold it to small people, it's continued to be now a populated area. The little forest that remained was then taken by the government. They built the CID office there, the operations, and even some of them gave themselves land.
Okay.
Successive regimes have given themselves land because the next on Kiambu Road to the right are areas where the former president owned. A former president actually owned that land and sold it to other people. So you can see how the forests were degraded to just a small 1,000 hectares that we are now trying to protect again. You look at the national park, however, it's a different history because down south were Maasai land, and the Maasai lived very well with their animals. And they knew that when, in this period, the lions will be moving south or moving north, and elephants and so on. So when land demarcation started moving and people were being given, there are ranches owned by some English people, and one of them have actually gifted the land back to the government to try to see whether there can be a corridor between Amboseli and Nairobi National Park. It's a very good idea, and people have talked about it. Have been in meetings where these discussions have been held, and they're trying to convince other big landowners. Like the former PS, I forget his name now, Mkamba guy, who owns more than 10,000 hectares of land south towards Amboseli. So if such people could give that land, there is a possibility of creating a corridor into Nairobi National Park. And the recent or constant lions coming out of the park to try to, will be aware of the past because they are all looking for ways to go out there and hunt. Now, Nairobi National Park is important for two reasons.
Yes.
Mainly, that you cannot kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And this is a golden egg. It is in itself a testament of what we have.
And what conservation is.
About conservation, And we are held in high esteem, Nairobi, as a city with a national park inside it.
Correct.
So why do you want to kill that? It's like I said, killing the goose
that lays
the golden egg.
And the question continues, Prof, because if you look at actions similar to these, you talk about the Ritz-Carlton Hotel that is now blocking the wildebeest movement, rather migration route in Masai Mara. And lots of action, lots of talk that went into it. Sometimes people say, like you rightfully said, I have my own business. Of what value is it to me? And of course, those who are in government would be like, we need to develop. We need certain things to happen. So what would be the viable alternatives, a balance between environmental conservation and, development focus? Would there be a very clear balance, and how would we go about it?
There is. When you engage people for an honest conversation, you get ways out of the Ritz-Carlton was even an easier thing to work on because you sit back and say, why do you want it to place it there, right next to the migration route? Obviously, for client.
Yeah.
So he want to take advantage of clients.
Tourists.
Said no. Let us first of all protect the migration path.
Yes.
And the river. So this is the alternative for you. You take it or leave it. And I'm sure they would have built the hotel where you suggest it's built. But right now, in Kenya, you coerce people, you corrupt people, you go and call a community and, I don't know, you do many things, and then people think it's okay. Without putting the thinking hat, what is the future of this structure in terms of migration routes, in terms of the river, because it's by the river, by the way, and so on and so forth. All we have done is to enrich someone, because someone will now say, which is the best place that I can go and I'll see this? Litz? What? Yeah? Whatever you're calling it. So we must balance these things. Even people who are doing business have to ask themselves, do I want a rush business? I get quick money and run out? Or do I want to build my organization around an ecosystem that I am supporting? And the second option to me would be the best for any businessman to undertake.
Prof, it's sad that you look at the continent as is and examples that do exist. We have solutions on how we can live with the environment better. Why? You look at a country like South Korea. South Korea, at the time when they were developing, they put up concrete structures, roads from here, climbing up and down. But as we speak, they actually brought down an entire highway and brought back water, and ecosystems have regenerated because they realize the importance of humans, nature coexisting together. And that has shown that even in a fast-paced environment like South Korea, individuals go to depressurize in these green spaces that they do have, because there is connection with nature. You go to even developed countries today, they would tell you go to spaces where you just need to step on grass because there is touch with nature, and that has medicinal value that gets through your feet. And here we are with everything that people did wrong, that they're now rectifying. We are able to see and learn from that and do it better. When some of us came to Nairobi, because others were not born in Nairobi, Waiaki had canopy of trees all the way, and it was a beautiful sight to see. Then development is there, and rightfully so. Many would say, we want development. But how do you have development and work together with nature so that it makes sense? Many ask today, why is it that when it rains in Nairobi, flooding? The other day we were being told
69 people died.
It's unfortunate.
The other day we were being told by a professor here who said the reason is because we got rid of our green spaces. Therefore, when this water comes, runaway water, it has nowhere to go because water is not being sipped down. If you look at the bigger conversation on development versus life, what makes sense? You talk about not being consulted as someone who sits at the board, right? But the other time when you're being consulted on the individual who's let off part of his land for that corridor, you are consulted. Why are we not seeing individuals flouting the law, or rather taking advantage of the law when it benefits them only?
Greed. Greed is biggest enemy of our country's development. People don't want to follow the law because they want to save their money, or they want to grab public assets. People believe that's the only route to billionaireship. And we all, unfortunately, praise, bend our heads, clap, ululate for these billionaires.
Yeah.
That is the crux of the problem. You go to a place like Denmark and find a people who are at home with themselves.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister rides a bicycle
But yeah.
to his office and back home. He stops by a small shop to buy milk and puts it on his bicycle. No one is with him. Not a policeman, nothing.
Yeah.
Okay? And he goes out his way. And that's their nature. You never see people crowding him because he's the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He's just doing his job, and I'm on mine.
Yeah.
And it's not because the Danish are wealthy.
No.
They are wealthier nations.
Yeah.
And for that matter, most of the people in that region are like that, whether you go to Sweden or you go to...
And they're healthy.
So it's us to choose how we want to live. Do you want to always be a person who looks up to other people for you to get well because you're sick, for you to feed yourself because you're hungry, for you even to get your child to school because they need to go to school? If you believe that you need somebody, then you are in the wrong. We should be asking the government to empower us to be able to do all those things, to feed well, to educate our children, and to go to a hospital where you find medicine. But now, the guy who is in charge of hospitals and medicine is coming to you to give you 1,000 shillings. For what? See, he goes and buys medicine for the poor. Are we together?
Yeah.
So you could know, we've got things the wrong way. And unfortunately, the bottom is heavy. Because at the bottom, people don't even have the luxury to listen to what we're talking about. Are we together?
Sure.
So what is left for this country? Only a revolution can change.
So how do we mobilize and organize around
That's what I'm saying,
such a-
that there has to come a time when young people, like yourselves, will say no. And I can begin to see it. You look at the Gen Z and the conversations they're having, and they will say no, and their no will be no completely.
Yeah.
100%. Eh?
Yeah.
And that's the only way you change a system. Because our way of doing things have been transformed to them doing things for us.
Yes.
You go to a village poor where I grew up myself. And by the way, just like you,
We came to Nairobi.
I came to Nairobi. And when you go there,
Yeah.
oh, Prof is here. Hey, let's go and see him. What they are looking for is something from you. I'm not a politician. I have no whatever. But because they know I went to Nairobi and I'm back home here, they want something. Or even if, by the way, even buying them bread, bread,
Yeah.
that is enough to say, oh, you know. But
Yeah.
is that the culture you want in this country? I don't believe so.
And I think, and I think that's a good place to take a short commercial break. We come back and we continue with this conversation because we can't just sit pretty and assume that things are going on well. We must protect our spaces, and one of those spaces, one of the best things to do is to be part and parcel of this conversation. At exactly 42 minutes after 9 a.m. See you in a bit.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Right? But Mother Nature will always fight for its space, and if you're not careful, it will get rid of you. We have seen that happen. But for some weird reason, we you look at even conversations, the political conversations that we have in the country, no one really pays attention to the environment, never pays attention to conservation conversations. The country talk about Denmark, right? That is part and parcel of conversations they have by virtue that of, if you talk about the COP during the Copenhagen COP that happened and decisions that followed thereafter, the reason why they're driving is because they're reducing their carbon footprint. You know, that's why they're cycling to work and back.
Exactly.
If you go further north towards Norway, there are mountains there where individuals go to walk on Mother Earth with their bare feet in the cold to say they're feeling better. They swim in the cold sea because they say that has healing powers.
Exactly.
That is what others are doing. But stories or conversations around conservation is huge and big in those countries. What must we do for us to stop being about tunataka power, tunataka deputy position seat, and we start talking about conservation, the environment, and what that does to the future generations that come?
I think we have to do two things. One, broaden our thinking on what makes us survive as a nation. Survival of a nation, first of all, is to feed its people and to engage the people in a progressive development manner. So when people feel that they are progressing, that nation is secure. When people feel that they are moving backwards, something is wrong and something will happen. But how do you know that you're going forward? One is that you're able to feed your family, and you are able to ensure that each family's needs are met. That's what everybody is looking for, yeah? Of course, many people look for other wealth to show off or to do whatever, yeah? But the essence of doing that is to look at what you want from what you have. Because you can feed your family or educate your family if you don't have something. You must have something. So we all, as Kenyans, 52 million people, have assets. Our land, our waters, our
forests,
territories, our forests, our so on. Then we say, our land. What do we do with our land? The way our great-great-great-grandfathers did. They hunted in the land or they farmed on the land. And then we say, now that we are better than our great-great-grandfather, how do we produce more food in a smaller space, and where should we protect as agricultural land? There comes the law. The law says this is agricultural land. And if you buy it, you cannot transform an agricultural land to a residential or without authority. This is where we went wrong. We reduced that authority from being made by the people to being made by an individual in an office. So you apply for change of use. In Nairobi, when you apply for change of use, who sees it? Only the guys in Sakaja's office.
Approving officers.
Are we together? They approve it, and they charge you for the whatever. And for them, because income is so important, do you think they actually go there to figure out, wow, how does this land look like? Why are we doing? So they even change land that ought never to be built on into an apartment. So those are the problems that we are dealing with. In terms of survival, we seem to only concentrate on today. But survival means you plan for 50 years to come. That's how you survive a human society. You know, we don't do it just for today. We say, when we built my house where I live, we weren't building it for our life. We knew this house will outdo my life. So you build it, family, so that your children can actually use it. So it's the same with building a nation. you need to have things that will outlive you. That is why we do infrastructure like roads. That's why we do infrastructure like dams, so that we can hold water even for the poorer seasons. But even in land, we must say this land can never be used for any other purpose other than to provide food for the nation. So if you buy it, you know you're going to be a farmer. That is the way most of the developing world have. If you go to Canada, where I lived for almost 16, 17 years, it is very difficult to go to the prairies, buy land, and use it other than being a farmer. Canola, wheat. If you're not a canola or wheat farmer, get out of the prairies. Yeah, because it's very clear. And Canada produces large amounts of wheat, such that they can gift wheat to Kenya and Uganda and still have enough for them to
Because
consume.
they planned.
That's what we ought to be asking ourselves. Why is it we produce only for today, only for this year? Where are our grain silos? The first thing that this government did, remember, the grain problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you are raiding the granary rather than going to the farmers and encouraging them and making sure that they are able to produce more. So those are the real problems that we have as a nation.
And Prof, talking about those real problems and the kind of successful stories that you have shared with us from Canada to the granary, I'm just wondering, because this is almost similar to the engagements that were going on at Karura.
Yeah.
And what are some of the lessons that we can learn from that process, from the Friends of Karura Forest, and now build them into salvaging what's happening at the Nairobi National Park?
If you look at Karura is a very small forest because of what I told you.
Yes.
It's just 1,041 hectares. And yet someone, because they're in government, can decide, I'm going to build a place for 150 National Youth Service to live inside the forest. You wonder now, is this guy thinking properly, or what is the issue? And they won't consult us. They won't call a public participation. And when we question, they ask why. We are the custodians of the forest. We can do what we want. You are just a CFA. Said, we are just a CFA? I am an owner of this forest. Every Kenyan is an owner of that forest. So we went and said, look, we want a conversation. They closed the door. We went to court. This matter is still in court. I can't talk too much about it. But what I'm saying here is that leadership must be open to dialogue, because we didn't go there with a gun. We went there just to ask what the hell is going on. Are we together? And by the way, I had a conversation with one of the leaders from the ministry, and I told him, please, if you want to produce 2 million tree seedlings, it is very easy to do so, because every forest station in Kenya has a CFA.
Yes.
Just approach, call the CFA members, tell them,
community forest association.
You produce, 1 million, we produce 500, you will produce all the seedlings you want, and even specify which ones you want, and then target them to where they will be planted, because sometimes the supply does not gel with the consumer. In other words, we need to understand, where is this? If we are going to grow 2 million trees in Karura, seedlings, where are they going to be planted? Because it's not in Karura, we don't have a place to plant. So if he tells me that they are going to plant in Kajiado, I tell him, don't do it. Go to Kajiado and grow the seedlings there.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you are sure that child of a tree grows with the same climate and with the same resilience.
Yeah.
When the late Raila Amolo Odinga was Prime Minister, he asked me to help him in the Mau restoration.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And we would sit and really chat about what needs to be done. And I had gone.